Hey, Shaily, I am so glad to have you on the podcast today. I know we've been talking. We've got energy going, don't we?
Oh yeah, and you're just I love it. I love how you just like go for it with confidence for your people, and I'm so glad they have you.
I'm glad that you're on the podcast. So
Same.
I am curious to know. I want to jump right in because one of the things that I noticed when we were going back and forth in our conversation is that it has taken you a little bit of time as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, to figure out what you want to do and where your zone of genius really is. And you didn't have it figured out from day one? I
No,
mean,
absolutely not.
really?
You know this, I know this. I hope your listeners are understanding this from you, and all your awesome content. Yeah, it took a long time. So here's what I knew about myself. When I was a teenager, like I was putting on dances, running like helping fundraise
Oh,
for nonprofits, and like I was doing all the good stuff, right? So I was putting things together, but I realized a lot of my greatness took a lot of time to build out, where I had like a lot of months or years to kind of ponder, research, investigate,
mhm.
build. I know, get an episode on networking, network with the right people
Yeah.
who can help me make it happen. And like I would do it slow and steady. So I knew that worked in my like pre needing an income life. And then
Mhm.
getting the income life, I was like, I'm going to trust this, even though it meant that I didn't really make much money at all for a long time.
Mhm.
But I knew that if I kept doing little tweaks and kept researching, kept diving deep, I could hit something so specifically that it'll be like a hit no matter what. And I think it's getting a lot closer to that day over day over day. But like, I'm talking about like 8, 9 years, 8 years, 9 years. I don't know. What am I? I'm
Mhm.
31 now, probably since I was like 23. I
Okay.
don't know. Long time. And it's day over day, just tweaking, asking questions, doing the work. And it just gets clearer and
Mhm.
clearer over time. And I don't like to put pressure on people to be like, figure out who you are, who you serve immediately, because sometimes you just don't have those answers. So I
No.
trust the time, but that's how I've always worked. So I knew myself. And as scary as it is, it's gotten me here. So
Yeah.
that's a taste of it.
I
Uh,
love it. I don't, I started business and I thought I knew what I wanted and kept asking questions, and it kind of kept pivoting a little bit. And I realized new
exactly.
things.
Exactly. Right? Like for me, I was using like teacher languages, right? I used to be your social
Mhm.
media teacher and people didn't like the word teacher. And my mentor was like, stop it. I hate that word. And then she changed it. And I was like, okay, I'll be your social media Sherpa now. Like, let's just try that. And it
Yeah.
stuck and people like it. I'm like, great. So like things tweaked, like the way I was charging for services,
Mhm.
like, 4 years ago are very different than what I'm doing now. I used to give
Right.
people so much for very little and it's evolved, right? And like,
Mhm.
but you know what else I did that in that process that I think you advocate for a lot in your show is like I think you said people who are like currently working jobs or starting a side hustle or whatever, like having some sort of stable income alongside like you're
Yeah.
a professor, like that's so cool, you're a
Yeah.
doctor, like all this stuff, right? You doing multiple things alongside each other is a great way to de-risk stuff. Or having like a whale client or something
Right.
you stable because I don't think I could have done this if I didn't give myself like 4 years to like cultivate the
Mhm.
Sherpa experience.
Mhm. And I think it doesn't just de-risk it, it removes some of the stress from you feeling like, oh my gosh, I quit my 9 to 5. Today is my first day. I need to be at the same income. That's not realistic
No,
as an entrepreneur. It just there aren't overnight successes. There's overnight
no.
awareness where we see people, right? But there's not overnight success. A lot of stuff went
Yes.
into that before we got to
Yes.
success.
100%. And I would say this, like, I know plenty of people who even gave themselves 6 months of leeway, and even that wasn't enough, right? I think the best people that I've seen, like, I don't know, I think there's some people who are a little crazy and a little overworked, but like they had, $100,000 of consulting clients while they had $100,000 job doing whatever else. Now that sounds really
Oh.
hard to do. I don't know how common that is. These are probably people who have experience in sales, honestly,
Mhm.
but like, I don't know. That's cool, but I don't know how many people can actually pull that off or they have somebody at home that can be a support as they're navigating stuff. But I think
Yeah.
a lot of people are like, I'm so excited. The first day I quit my job and I'm doing it. They're so pumped. And then like months later, you don't see them as excited because it's hard. So
Yep.
the more advantages you can give yourself, the better. The other thing I'm going to be honest about is I've never actually worked a 9 to 5. I managed to go my entire career avoiding it. I know, shocking. So I'm
Ooh.
scared to even tell you that because I know you have a lot of 9 to 5ers on the
That's
show.
okay. I have a lot of people that don't, or they've been stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home
Ooh.
parents, and now they're at a point where their kid's old enough that they can start cultivating their skills again in a way that's really
Ooh.
fulfilling.
Yes. Ooh, I like that.
And so
That's a
even if they
huge
had a nine
skill.
to five, not for a while.
Yeah. There's a lot of pieces there. And I know well, I'm not a mom, but I've been thinking a lot about what motherhood is like. And I know it can get real messy, but there's a lot of experience you get in motherhood
Yeah.
that can be leveraged. Have you seen is it the pregnancy pause on LinkedIn? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
Oh, it's so
Yes.
cool. Do your listeners know, or should we tell them about it? Because I
We
think it's like
probably should
this.
tell them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it called? The pregnancy pause. As somebody who doesn't have a kid, I was like, this is so cool. It's literally like a job position you can add to your
Mhm.
LinkedIn profile, that like says, hey, like I am a mom and like, this is what the gap is. And it like kind of
Right.
validates the gap, but it gives people content to be like, don't discriminate against me because I didn't work for 5 years.
Mhm.
And that's my version of it. I don't know. Their PR is probably different. Yeah, when mom returns to the workplace, they apply with gaps in their resume because they have no standardized job description for maternity leave. So they're the standardized job description for maternity leave.
Mhm.
And employers can't legally ask moms about gaps in their employment history. So this kind of helps them. I guess this gives them a
It
lot of
does.
resources. And it looks really pretty on your LinkedIn. So if
Yeah.
you're confident enough, throw that on there.
Mhm.
That's a good thing. It's all
And
about how you
you learn so
read.
many skills. I mean, come on. You
I can
don't
believe
just
it.
stop learning skills and growing as a human being. And at the end of the day, it's about growing as a human being that we want to do in life, in our work and in our personal situations.
100%, 100%. Yes, and just give yourself the time to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a full-fledged thing. It can be flexible. It can be part-time. It can be full-time. It could be
Mhm.
like a side gig. I think there's a lot of really good priced mom services that are out there. Shoot, I don't know if this even exists, but like babysit someone else's kids during the day. That's a good side hustle while you're still taking care of your own if you're a stay-at-home. Like, I don't know if that's fun or not. I'm making this up. I'm not a mom, but I am researching motherhood really hardcore right now. That's my little secret podcast. So I know I might have to ask you questions at some point, but or
Oh
any of
my
the moms that
goodness.
are listening. I don't know. I'm researching
Yeah.
because I have no kids, but I love my business, and I'm like, what do
Mhm.
you do? Business babies. Ugh.
It's a
But
mix.
it is. I'll tell you this, like one of the things that I really loved about how I designed my business is like for me,
Mhm.
like time richness. I'm like a millennial. This is what we do. We want time richness and flexibility. Like I
Mhm.
don't need to have $1 billion. Like I have enough to get by and it's fine.
Yep.
Get by and like, whatever, have some flexibility, savings, whatever. But I like the ability, what was I gonna say about time? Um, I
You really
like
want to
that.
use it the way you want, right? Get the
Yes.
most out of it.
Yes. And I think maybe as somebody who knows motherhood, like I like that if I did have a kid, like, could I maintain this a lot easier if I don't need that many hours and still have a fulfilled business?
Mhm.
Because I realize that's really, really hard to do once you've already done it, or you get sucked into an MLM and that's a little scary.
Mhm.
So that's what I
Okay.
also liked. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we're thinking, mom or not, dad or not, wherever you are kind of in your life, your business has to work for you. And it's okay to take
Yes.
that journey of figuring out what it looks like and to pivot as many times as you need to. But at the end of the day, it does come back to being able to put yourself out there in a way that is
Mm-hmm.
going to gather attention and so that you can offer help and do good in the world, right? Because if
Sure.
you're under a rock, you can't do as much good. I'm sorry, you can't.
No,
Um,
you can't. Well, they have a resource, right? I think you mentioned in one show, like you can't just hit up all your friends in your network for like money and for gigs, but you can hit up people who are in the target demo that you want in a way that feels natural.
yeah.
I always say that the people that like I best serve, I look at them and I say, hey, how are you currently? And these are people who have established businesses of some sort. And
Mhm.
I say, how are you currently staying in touch with your people who refer you business, people that you've worked with in the past? How are you staying in touch with
Mm.
people that you think could send you more customers? And then they look at me and they're like, well,
I don't. I meant to.
right. And that's where the guild comes in. And so I think a lot of people who sell like social media stuff, they're like, oh, here's how you hack Instagram this month because next week they're going to change it or next year they're going to
Mhm.
change it. And like, that's not sustainable as, hey, even if you've got
No.
50 people, 20 people that are in your target demographic, if you can't get the right information in front of their eyeballs, you're
Mhm.
missing an opportunity there, right?
Mhm.
And so I think one episode you mentioned newsletters, like newsletters can be a really jackpot, easy way to do it and nobody can steal your email list. So that's
Right.
what I always advocate for is use that base. It doesn't mean that every, the person you went to high school with is on that list, but there might be people in your network that you can cultivate. It doesn't matter how many there are. If they're quality people and you can give them information about whatever the thing is that you're doing, or even just who
Mhm.
you are, you can start cultivating those things to eventually turn into whatever it is you want it to turn into. And that's a little bit of what I
Yes.
do with my people.
Oh, I love it. I love that. It's a long game. I
Oh,
think that's,
always.
that's what you're saying is it's a long game. We're not after the hack that works for the day.
No.
We're after
Absolutely
the
not.
long game of truly building relationships. Do you remember, was it a year ago when Facebook and Instagram went down for 24 hours?
Oh, that was hilarious.
Yeah.
It was just, people just had to be real for a minute.
I
Or they
mean,
panicked on Twitter.
yes.
So that was like Twitter research for a minute.
Mhm. But
So
remembering that you have to
yeah.
cultivate that and get them onto your email list eventually so that you, because that's owned property
Yes. They need
versus
to
the
know
rented
this.
land of LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, all the things.
Yup, because their algorithms will change tomorrow, and
Mhm.
then maybe you won't get those 400,000 people that my cousin
Mhm.
has subscribed to him, right? He might only get
Right.
5,000 of them. So that's another big one, right? But also, like, I also want to be cautious of, like, and I think this is my advice for people who are starting out, is like, don't get too sucked into the things that don't matter. And I think a lot of new business owners, they get excited about, oh, my name of my business, let me spend hours on it, and my
Oh.
logo. Those are all things you can control and check the box off, which is very
Mhm.
like, I had a job and that's what I did. I checked off boxes. But when you're in a business, you gotta like actually figure out where the revenue is coming from. And I think, I would guess for a lot of moms, they probably don't even, if they're not at background in sales, they probably don't even know to think about it that way. So
Mhm.
like, I've seen plenty of businesses who charge very, very little, have really extravagant websites with logos, and I'm sure they spend a lot of money on it, but they don't get a lot of business. And I think for me, like, if like, I'm glad I had an ugly website to start with, because eventually, like, I could prioritize things that matter. And I think
Yes.
I would have spent more energy learning how to sell earlier in my business.
Mhm.
That would have made a huge difference. But I kind of kept putting it off, being like, I don't have to learn. I'll still get money. And I got some money, but it wasn't a lot of money.
Right.
And the minute I understood how to do sales, which took me like 3 years, again, slow and steady, it made the opportunities I got this year so much better.
Mhm.
So don't do checkbox items. Do something where you can try to figure out quickly if it's going to work. I don't know. I'm saying that to you. I didn't do that very well. So
I know. Well, here's the thing. Neither did I. I'm lucky enough. My husband does website design and development, all that stuff.
oh,
Like
what
he's
a
a
deal.
user experience dude in
Oh,
his
what
9
a
to 5.
deal.
So super cool. But so we spent time on that in the very beginning. We didn't need to. And it's not what I tell my clients. It's not what I tell our listeners. It's
Right?
do get out there and get your name out there. Start talking, because that's how you gain the clarity on what you're doing, what you're offering. And most people don't care if you don't have a website.
No, they don't.
If
You don't
you're
need it
right
right
for
away.
them, they're going to work with you. It doesn't have to be a beautiful, sophisticated website. You can say, you know what? I'm just starting to build it. Here's a landing page that I've got up, but I'd really love to sit down and have a one-on-one conversation with you.
Yes. And you ready to make that one-on-one conversation need more? This is what you do. And I told this to a friend of mine who doesn't have a website. She's a editor, and I think she edits things for like Disney and like other big children's book companies. I know, she's cool. It's fun. I love her. And I told her, I'm like, oh, you got to get a website maybe. And she pushed back, and I was like, well, why are you pushing back? Because she's not an entrepreneur in the same way that I am, but she like freelances, and it's like a good income for her on the side.
Yeah.
So she's actually a good at, she's like very similar to probably your audience. And I said to her, the easiest thing you can do is to fill the gap. I say gap fill on the knowledge of your ideal customer. Just write down every freaking question that you get as an FAQ. Just put it down. That's like one of my tips in my video series. It's just like, write everything down. Like, what questions do you commonly get? What misconceptions do you have? What are things that your ideal clients are struggling with? Like, what are mistakes that they make? And write all that stuff down, because that could later turn into content. And if you don't have a website, make that into a Google Doc and just mail it to people over email, because you might not get someone to give you their time, but if they read that first, they might be more open and willing to, because that phone call is a much bigger leap for someone who doesn't know who you are than sending them this information to help them gap fill. So that's a hack right there. You can do it right now.
Brilliant. It is. It's so nice, because what happens when you do that is that your ideal client sees themselves, and they see that you can help them with whatever they're struggling with right now. They say, she's got it. He's got it. Oh, I need that.
Yes.
And it creates demand.
Yes, it does. It does create demand, and you get people to see it, right? Or you email it to people, and maybe that turns into a content, because every one of those questions could potentially be a post down the line. But I would say start with that first before you get too sucked into like the nitty gritty of the internet and social media, because it's a rabbit hole that, be careful.
but once we do get sucked into that rabbit hole, once we do get into social media, oh, it makes me sweat. So I know that you tend to specialize in LinkedIn, and honestly, coming on here today with you, I had a moment of panic last night as I was like, I have not updated my LinkedIn in a really long time.
I got nuggets for you.
I can't believe, oh shoot, I'm going to go try and change everything now.
No, not everything. I have one most important nugget for you. I don't know. Oh, maybe your website. I didn't know if your website was in your, well, maybe it is here.
It
I don't know
is.
if your website, is it under your job description? Because I looked in the experience section and I
Mm,
didn't see your website. And I was like,
no.
oh, I had to Google you.
Well,
So let's say
it's in my upper profile part on LinkedIn.
oh, course. Oh, here we go. Okay, I see the course. Okay, maybe add it another couple more
Okay.
times. Add
Okay.
it a few more, just like you today. So for everyone listening, is it
Mm-hmm.
Moira? Am I saying that right?
Mora.
Aura. Oh, see, there you go. One of your episodes, you're like, people mess up my name all the time. I'm like, me too. Here I am. Mora. So Dr. Mora, what was I gonna say? You told me like you were trying to figure out how to say my last name, and I realized a lot of shows I go on, people ask me
Mm-hmm.
that question. So I try to put it in a lot of places. Because of our conversation, I added it to my profile in another location so that more people would see it.
Okay.
So I've got a version for you to add it to your CEO and founder of the Coaching Hive. You can add that in the description. You can add it into the title. You
Okay.
can add it to your about section. I would just like sprinkle it in a few different places because like
Okay.
I didn't even realize it was there because like some people don't even know that that's a link to your full website. Be a thriving course creator.
Okay.
Now I see that, but I have a .com, but it is also a nice place where you can hook people to do more.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you have the newsletter. Okay, one of the great things that you've done that your listeners could do is they make it really easy to find your newsletter. Tuesday in Focus newsletter. Do you still publish stuff regularly on there?
I do send a weekly email. Yeah, I
Yeah,
do.
get it, girl. Amazing. So you're a great role model for this example. Yeah,
Well,
I'm looking up.
actually, wait a minute. I just said I send a weekly email. Okay, I probably send 49 out of 52.
That's pretty good. I only do 26 a year, so good for you. So if that's helping you, like go for it. The other
Yeah.
thing I would say, are you posting on here?
No.
It's okay. You might not need to. Look, it depends on who your audience is, right? Like, are these
Mhm.
494 connections? This is what every one of your listeners can do too. Are those
Okay.
494 people, are they relevant to your business right now? Are they people that you think could buy from you? Or are they like past people that maybe are not relevant?
Probably mostly past
So
people.
then that's something that I would consider is like, okay, well, maybe your LinkedIn isn't totally set up for like, I wouldn't trust, like, I never am somebody to just trust that strangers are going to fall from the sky. That might
Right.
not be your bucket, right? Of like where
Hmm.
all your right people, like you found them, right?
Hmm.
So it might not even get you move the needle very quickly for you to change that. But like, let's say you're getting somebody else on Podmatch that wants to figure out who you are.
Hmm.
I was like, oh, I would love to find your website or any other details. The other thing I'll tell you, and this
Okay.
is something that, and I just got hired to do like, I was at a conference and I was literally a live LinkedIn booth, just like helping people live. Yeah, it was so fun. I
Oh,
loved it.
neat.
So it was really cool. And so one of the things I noticed that a lot of people don't utilize is their about section. And so you talk about the fact that you have a show that has a lot of downloads, like good for you. Actually, that's a lot of downloads. Good for you. And you actually have a nice little blurb here, but like maybe
As
you
of
already.
last night,
Oh, is that new?
all of it's new.
Oh, great. Good for you. I would say this because like people are going to look there. They might not go to your website. They might go there.
Hmm.
You could also tell people a little bit more like an infomercial about your business, which I'm sure you do versions of that with your clients. You
Hmm.
probably already have that copy somewhere.
I do.
So if you can add that to your about section and hook
Okay.
people in the first few lines, because if they don't know what's in it for them immediately, they
Hmm.
might not click the see more button. Because whenever you look at that about section,
Okay.
they only show you a few lines, and if you're not
Hmm.
interested, you won't click see more. And that's how LinkedIn decides how like entertaining your profile is. It's very weird.
Ooh.
I know. And that's good for posting. That's good for the first few lines of your headline. Anything you write on LinkedIn,
Okay.
the first few lines got to hook people. Just like your favorite TV show that's like, after the commercial break, we're going to see what happens on The Bachelor and blah, blah, blah. It
And
works
you
on
run
LinkedIn.
around. You run around to make sure you're back in your on the couch before the commercials are over.
Works on LinkedIn. It
Okay.
hooks you just like a cheesy infomercial, but like morify it. That's what I always tell people. Like make it their
Oh,
own.
okay. Okay.
So you probably have that. I would put that in there. So
Okay.
juicy, make it
So
juicy.
making the about section juicy on LinkedIn. And
Yes.
I'm guessing this works for like Instagram and Facebook
Everything.
too. All of
All of
these
them.
are kind of
Everything I
functioning.
teach applies to like can apply to any social media platform of the past or the future. It's the
Okay.
same kind of concepts. I'm less focused on the nitty gritty technical details, though.
Mhm.
LinkedIn, I know a lot more about the LinkedIn
Yeah.
ones,
Yeah.
but like this is the stuff that'll work anywhere, right? If your about section or your headline or whatever, your bio on Instagram is very, very clear about what you do, who you are, and who you help, which I think you do. You know how to do. I think you teach your people how to do that. That's a lot easier to direct people. And I think
Mhm.
I'm gonna again emphasize that like you give people direction of like get on my newsletter, right? That is also an option on other platforms too, because you want to point people to take some
Right.
sort of action, and that's much easier than getting on the phone with you. So I
Mhm.
love that. You have a lot of great things to be proud of on there. Get
Phew.
it? What did you
Oh,
think I was gonna say? Wait, do you want to criticize yourself for it? Because I'm like, you have a lot of good stuff going.
well, I know that you were on a stage with Mike McAllowitz
Yeah,
and
he's cool.
and having him update his
Oh
LinkedIn
yeah.
profile, and I'm thinking, oh man, if Mike needs help, oh, I'm not even close to
No, you're
not
good.
even
You're
close
okay.
to okay.
I
So
mean, you tell people what you do, right? Helping course creators
yeah.
thrive and profit with their entrepreneur mindset,
Mhm.
with the Entrepreneur Mindset podcast and entrepreneur membership, which is really easy. Like from your page now to that, if you put more website in there,
Mhm.
you can really guide people to a direction you want them to take, and it's very clearly labeled in your packages and your services. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's very pretty. I have to get
But
ideas from that because your
but
website's
like
very
you,
organized.
but like you, it's taken me a long time to
Oh
get to
yeah,
that organization of knowing
yeah,
the of how I want to direct attention and guide
exactly.
that attention forward so that people coming into my world or people coming into your world know exactly where to go and what to do.
Exactly. And that's my project actually next week in my business. I just talked to my business accountability service person, amazing human. And I'm like, okay, next week I'm going to make my directionality better because I just actually, before this call, I messaged my friend who does UX and I was like, maybe I need to brainstorm with you about how to like reorganize some of the buttons on my website. Because I think I have all the ingredients, but my directionality on my website needs to be a lot better. And I'm going to be open about that. I am not perfect, but I will say the right people are getting regular information from me on a consistent basis. And that's what works for me, right? Either they're getting
That's
it
the
on my
key.
newsletter, they're getting it on my LinkedIn. I'm making new friends on the podcast who then sign up for
Yeah.
one of those other two places, right?
Yep.
The directionality is huge and it does not have to be complicated, especially if you're starting out,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And
It
you
doesn't even have
don't
to be fancy. Yeah.
and you don't have to have 10,000 followers out of the
You
gate.
don't.
In
You
fact,
don't.
I would much rather have 1,000 quality followers who are in my world because
Oh yeah.
I can help them and they are meant to be there than 10,000 people who saw an entertaining reel and thought it was funny and hit follow
Right?
and
And they
maybe
might not
aren't
be your
someone I can
target.
help.
No. So, where, Dr. Moore, where are your people at? Like, where is your, how are you, what's the best way that you're keeping in touch with the right people and funneling them?
So in the past, I was trying to do all of the things and realized that was not an effective
No, it's
strategy.
not. No more spray and pray.
No, it was not working.
Shiny object syndrome.
It really was. I will freely admit I have shiny object syndrome and I love all
Hard.
the things,
Oh, it's
but I'm
hard.
also really good at focusing when I know that I'm supposed to focus. So
Oh yeah, your podcast is
I
great
spend
for
a
that,
lot
I
of
can tell.
time on Instagram and Facebook because a lot of times what happens is course creators finish up a big course like Amy Porterfield's Digital Course Academy,
Oh, those
and
are your
then they
faves.
don't follow through on what they're doing
Oh,
because they
I
don't have the
love
support.
this.
So I hang
Oh,
out on Facebook and
yes.
Instagram because her people are hanging out on Facebook and Instagram. Same thing with like Stu McLaren's membership experience. They get through the course, and if they don't join his membership where there's a lot of ongoing support, well, what happens? They
They
sit
do
on their
this.
memberships. They don't keep
Yep.
going. So I help people get that stuff finished. So I'm hanging out in the places they're hanging out.
Oh, it's I love it. Okay, so that makes sense, right? So you were all like, "Oh, I gotta get LinkedIn." Like honestly, LinkedIn showcase page, just paste stuff you already have.
Okay.
Give people that clear direction. Maybe add your
Mm-hmm.
website in. Make it really, really clear
Mm-hmm.
that link is your website or
Okay.
whatever they're gonna get. That's it. Like that's it. Don't stress about it. You already know where your people are, right? The next
Okay.
thing I would tell you: Are you finding those people and making friends with them? Are you DMing them? Are you engaging with their profiles? Are you helping them get them to follow you? Like I mean, you don't have to reveal all your secrets here, but like that's where I would, I love that. You want to double down on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine your profile, without even looking at it, probably guides people to whatever next steps you want. Cause I think that's a really interesting market.
Mm-hmm. It's
Speaking
fun.
of, yes. And I'm going to double down and say, like, I actually made a video about like, what do you do with course providers versus one-on-one support? And I think that's one of the biggest qualms, is that the word, about courses is that they don't give you the support that you need to help you walk through. Because earlier in my business, people came to me with that kind of stuff. They're like, oh, I was in a real estate course and they told me social media stuff. And I read the social media guidelines and they were kind of weak, but like they were okay.
Mm-hmm.
But like that wasn't enough for him to actually figure out what he's supposed to do.
Right.
So they don't give you that support, or maybe they do, or it's too expensive, or it's not the right
They
place
do,
for
but it
you.
stops. And if you don't join the follow-up membership, then what happens? And
People don't finish.
if
They
the
don't
goal is to
finish.
do good in the world, create that ripple effect, but your course is sitting in your Google Drive files, just gathering dust,
Nothing.
it's not doing any good.
No, but you can give them the accountability. It all makes sense. I see where you're trying to hit. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So if you've got those relationships and they know you and they trust you, you know what, this is good for any of your followers, right? I think one of the episodes is like networking and like the benefits of networking. Like whenever I add somebody new on LinkedIn, they're signing up for my marketing. The same way that, you know, you make a new friend that's into one that's perfect for you, they sign up for your Instagram and they're going to be now getting your marketing without really feeling like it's your marketing, right? Clicking the like button feels so easy. But maybe your stuff comes up and they see you as Dr. Moore, the genius that's going to solve all my problems because you have all the right tips and all the things, and that's great. So I don't know if you do that. Like one other strategy that I like, that's kind of like, that can work again, any platform, is if you like, maybe you're already doing this, you go up to like Amy's people without being like the skis. I mean, you gotta
I'm all about ethics.
So ethically do this. But if you find people that look like their target audience, you can, if you like and comment on their page with something really friendly and like they can tell that it was customized, people tend to be like, oh wow, you're like such a nice human. I had somebody on Insta or Twitter like follow me, and I was like, who is it? And I assumed it was one of those like marketing robots. It's like, only add 1,000, 10,000 people and unfollow and like I assumed it was one of those. And I looked, I'm like, she only has 2,000 people that she's following. I'm like, oh, she's like a real person. And then I looked at her website, I'm like, oh, she's really smart about things that I'm not good at, like websites and SEO. I love those two skills. I'm not good. I can give you snippets, but I don't solve like deeply. I give you overview. Right. So I looked at her website and I was like, oh, I like your stuff. I like this. I messaged her. I'm like, hey, I found out because I messaged her, tweeted at her, why are you following me? And she's like, oh, I heard you on this podcast and you're doing exactly what you said you do on the podcast. You're reaching out to me and being friendly. And I was like, oh, cool. Amazing. Ooh. So like, I don't know if this is something that would be
that no like and trust went up. That no like and trust went up because you did exactly what you advocated in another conversation.
Exactly. And that works anywhere, right? Like a TikToker did that to me, and she's very different kind of social media. She's like the beauty glamour photo shoot lady. And like she commented something really thoughtful on my video. And forever, whenever I saw her afterwards, even though I've never talked to her in my life, I felt like she was my friend. I'm like, oh yeah, she talked to me. Like, will she remember me? I don't know, but I felt connected to her. So a lot of times that's what I do. I either thank people who engage with my content, or I make friends with someone who then sees my stuff and then decides to follow me. There's a lot of ways you can do that. And I feel like you can maybe you do a little bit of that, but it depends on your vibe, right?
Yeah. Okay, so you have dropped a lot of nuggets in here. Oh my gosh.
So many nuggets, okay.
In addition, well, no, a whole
I'll take them back. I'll take them all back.
No, you can't have them. You put them out into the universe now.
And you have nuggets too. I love it. This is great. You're doing so good for your people. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. You reminded me and all of our listeners that when we go into our social media, we've got to grab attention quickly. That it can't be you can't bury the lead.
Don't bury the lead. No, don't do that.
You can't put the really important stuff 5, 6, 7 lines in and hope that anyone's going to see it. And just really making sure that you're showing up authentically and reaching out, creating genuine connection, whether it is through your newsletters or on social, as you're posting, as you're responding to people, and making sure that you are looking for those post topics that are going to relate. You know, you said, write down all of the problems, the challenges that they're having, the complaints they're making that you see, and address it, pull it out, talk about it in the open, because if they're feeling it, 80,000 other people are feeling it too.
Yes, exactly.
We feel like unicorns, but we're not. We all have the same problems. And if we can address it out in the open, that's when the growth happens. That's when our businesses build. That's when we get to make a difference.
The biggest thing I think I've learned about sales and marketing is anticipating their needs ahead of time, like, or even just naming their problems for them. Even in selling, right? If I can say back, like, Dr. Moore, is this what you're experiencing? And you say yes, or you say, not exactly, and you tweak it, and then I repeat it back to you. People love that. I think I assume therapists do that too, but I think it works in sales really, really well. So if you can do it in your marketing too, that also helps. People feel seen. And it's also like the best thing that we haven't even said out loud is that it lets you scale your humanness, right? Is that instead of me, I can't sit with you for 8 hours and explain everything I know, but if you're obsessed with me, I don't know if Dr. Moore is going to become obsessed with me, but if somebody wants to, they can go spend like 20 hours on YouTube watching all of my videos and watch them, or they can watch my video series. It's totally public on YouTube, and like spend all the time they want with me without me having to be there. And that's really the magic of social media, because it's that relationship building at scale. They could say, hi, I really loved your stuff, and then give me a testimonial for my video series and be like, oh my gosh, thank you, that's so nice of you. And then I freak out a little. But like, that's really the magic. It scales your human relationship building. And I want people to understand that it's not new. I think a lot of people like teach these skills as if they're a brand new thing. I'm like, human relationships have worked the same way for a bajillion years. People still get business by word of mouth. People still get referred to each other. People still do stuff face to face. It's taking that exact skill set and just using the new tools of today, which is LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever. Even like I had a client on Mastodon last year long before Twitter blew up, and I didn't even know what Mastodon was. And here I am giving him tips that will apply to Mastodon, because this will work no matter what. It's taking what you know about relationship building and skill sets and all people skills, jobs, whatever, and like moving it to the internet. And when you realize those are the same thing, it gets so much easier and so much less stressful.
Yes, it's relationship building. That's it. It's not this big fancy thing that has to take hours upon hours, and you're stressing over the exact graphic and the placing of the words. It's important to look nice, but it's not about that.
It's not about that. And it doesn't have to start there. I think I started writing this in my like blurbs about my work, and I'm like, oh, you can do social media, and sometimes in as little as an hour a week. And like one of my leads was like, really? And I was like, possibly. I mean, it depends on you, right? Like if you're already like one of my clients, he's 68 and he's been posting consistently on social media for a long time. He's already doing 2 or 3 posts a week. And I'm like, are you not? I don't even do 2 or 3 posts on LinkedIn a week. I'm too tired, honestly. But like I'm consistent. Consistency. I think you say it as much as I do. Yep. I've heard it on your show too. But I say, do it in less. Like my accountability service person was like, how long is it gonna take you to produce your shows? And I'm like, well, with my assistant, like doing some of the legwork that I hate writing. So I'm like, oh, she can do it for me. Thank you, lovely British assistant that I have. I could probably do all of my content for like a month and a half-ish in like 2 hours. And I'm like, that feels really weird and kind of good. If I really pull this off, that's actually not bad. That's like 30 minutes a week in theory, or even less than that. So it depends on how you do it. But now if you're starting out, you might not need to do that. Like same thing goes with like the logo thing. Like the social media efforts are kind of wasted if you don't know who you're talking to. And if you can't cultivate like 50 people who went to Amy Porterfield's class, and you can't give them information, they're not going to see more of you. So you got to know a little bit of who those people are, and then offer some goodness to them, or who knows what. Some people are like, give them free services. I don't know if I love that, but
there's a balance to it.
Yeah, there is. Don't let people take advantage of you, especially women. And as a Middle Eastern woman, I'm like, women of color, like don't let people do that to you.
I agree.
You're worth it. So yeah, I wrote that. What else?
You're worth charging. You're worth charging something, and charging an appropriate rate, not just charging.
Gosh, another advice here, very key to business: get a therapist to help you do this, because that shit is hard. Like me charging more and me feeling confident about talking about money, that was a therapy problem. And I am so glad I had a therapist to help me through it. And I think especially for women and the moms, like, shoot, if that's a resource you have access to, you have like good insurance, like just take it.
Absolutely.
And hack out these issues, because they will show up in your business. And I see it all the time in how people charge and all that kind of good stuff. And also, you know what else I'm going to say?
Okay.
I like that you're not necessarily like a typical course thing. You're like, let me help you finish the course and be your person, which I think I love. But the thing I'm always wary about is that courses aren't necessarily designed for you. They were designed by the person who made them for whatever they were going through. They're not necessarily adapted to your skills and your strengths. And, I gave the example earlier that I hate writing, but like if I sign up for a course that I think is really cool, but the whole strategy is based off of writing, it's gonna be a lot harder for me to be successful than it is for me to like go on a podcast and say talk, because
you're good at talking. You are.
And so I think that's also part of why people don't always finish things, is that it's like a lot harder to do that. So I think one of the other things I'd give as advice is, I think it took me a long time to trust myself. And, like I just realized people are like, get a funnel. And like funnels are technically not a bad thing, but I realized like a real true funnel was originally built off of human relationships of like, what do people need to experience first and second and third? But if you told me to make one 2 years ago, I wouldn't know how to do it. I don't think I've ever made a formal funnel, but I realized I have all the ingredients. Like I literally just had this call like an hour ago, all the ingredients to make one that's really natural and organic for the people that I serve. So I'm going to try to build that next week, but like build off of people first, because when I try to comprehend this person's teaching and that person's teaching and this person and like combine it like that. You also mentioned Alex Hormozy's book. Like I loved that book. Actually, that book was great. $100 million offers. I loved it. But like he simplified a lot of stuff. But when I was trying to like put all these things together, it was really hard. But now, after years of paying for different people to help me understand stuff, like I finally put them all together and made them my own. So make it you, Dr. Maura Fayette, do whoever your name is.
Yes.
Find a way to do you and trust yourself, because you don't have to do it their way, because it's worked for them. And maybe that strategy is already kind of tired out, like, right? So use your skill set, use the unique combinations of skills you have, because probably no one's got a teacher background like me. No one's probably obsessed with podcasting, guesting like I am.
Right.
Videos, LinkedIn, like, you know what? Use the combination you were gifted, because I always say, don't deprive the world of what makes you special.
Yep.
Right.
Brilliant. So
boom.
yeah, Shaily, I don't think we can top that. That was just perfect. How can we get in touch with you afterward? Because I know we need to know.
You go to yoursocialmediasherpa.com, and the easiest way that you can figure out if we're awesome for each other, or for you to just do things on your own, because I will literally tell you everything I know, is go there and do my video series. It's under resources. You can take it as a course. It's totally like no charge, and it's all fully on YouTube. So you don't have to give me an email, and that will help you understand how social media can be productive for your business, not just like a guess and check and hope it works. Get infinite content ideas, just like the FAQ stuff. I go into detail about it. You'll hear stories about how my customers did it, and feel much more confident about where your next customer is coming from. And also it'll give you some direction of whether we're a good fit for each other. And either way, you're going to like have a lot more understanding about how social media works after this experience. And you can see what we can do from there. So yoursocialmediasherpa.com.
Perfect. I'm going to put that link in the show notes, so you don't even have to remember it. You can just go click, and then you can bookmark it. Then you can bookmark it and get back to it anytime.
Yes, I love it.
All right. Yes. Thank you so much, Shaily, for coming on the show today, sharing all of your wisdom and your experience with our listeners and with me. I appreciated it.
Mwah, same to you. You're doing an amazing job, and you're really helping people who need you. So keep up the good, and I hope you get a whole bunch more people signing up for your stuffs.
Thank you.
Woohoo.